Welcome to the Unasked for critic. So today we have this plasma cannon on a Sentinel painted by Bauhaus Minis. I hope he is cool about me using his miniature to showcase what I would have done differently in this case. I just want to focus today on the plasma effect and the OSL effect of it. And I'm just toning down all the highlights that have already been put in there, or at least most of them. Adding them some midtones to the casing of the plasma, and then just going over to the chassis of the Sentinel, and toning that a little bit down, then going back to the gun, adding some midtones and getting rid of the whites in the skull, just to make sure there's nothing but maybe a little highlight of white inside there, just so we can sell the plasma better. Going up in there with some lighter blues, but nothing near to white, just so it doesn't shine so much. And then I'm trying to showcase that I would put some bright blue lines inside of the recesses, inside of the whole recess between the coils, also on top. I know that's a little bit difficult to show here because obviously I'm painting over some of the sculpt. Normally you would just feel it with a brush and just fill it out. Use an ink or dilute your white, maybe with an airbrush thinner. That's really nice. If you hear something in the background, that's definitely not my dog. That is the guy who criticized me on my last work on my video. He's now living in my basement. So I'm adding some more highlights here to the downward part of the coil, adding in a white line and going more opaque and opaque by each layer I'm adding, just to sell that glowy effect that is, in my case or in this case, supposed to come from inside the casing of the gun. Then I'm going back to the recesses again, adding a pure white inside there, the same as I did in the bottom. And then we go to the top of the coil, of the square coil, and add our highlights there, a little bit to the middle. In Bauhaus's original painting, the edges of the square coil were highlighted, and I will choose to do them a little bit darker than the rest of the coil, just because the light, I think, in this casing my dog is just too much in the background, I'm so sorry. But this is the voiceover I'm doing right now. I've already restarted this like 20 times, so yeah, no going back right now. So there you can see me adding this line just over the corners. And I think it gives it a really nice effect and gives it some depth inside of the glow too. Just to make the material there look a little bit thicker and not catch the light in the same way the rest of the coil would. Then I'm going back to the outside of the casing, bringing in some darker tones, because if I want to sell a light effect, I need the surroundings in the best case to be darker, because then the white will just pop more and make it look better. As you can see, I'm trying to use a bright blue instead of the white that was used to create the highlights, because I only use the pure white or an almost pure white inside of the coil to really sell this light source effect. And on the outside it should never be as bright as in the inside or more far away, and it shouldn't be that bright anymore. So I'm toning back this shine or OSL effect on the sentinel plate here, leaving some brighter highlights on the edges. But I know they seem white in the picture, but they are really not. If you look at it and compare it to the coil, it's always darker on the outside. So then I'm going back to the plasma gun, adding some of the lighter tones as more of a glowy effect to the plates which are next to the coil and would catch some of this bending light. I also added a shadow above the skull and at some of the rivets, because even if something is lighted, you always catch a shadow inside these recesses. Then we go to these two, I guess, holes or see-through parts. I wanted to incorporate the drop shadow from the picture, so it doesn't seem too off in this painting. So then we go to the front vents of this gun. Just paint in some midtones into the recesses. Tone down the surrounding plates and parts. This again is really important to sell the effect later on. Then inside of the vents I just try to use the drop shadow again and leave it inside of the painting and not overpaint it. Adding in lighter parts on the back side of the vent. Here I'm just creating our OSL effect by adding a mid-tone blue around the vents. There's already a little bit of highlight from the original painting from Bruchhaus minis, so I don't have to go too deep, and I just go in with a lighter blue here and adding a white, almost white spot in the end, and then a white spot in the real end, just to sell this glowy effect more. Adding a little bit of an edge highlight here. I overpainted it a little bit. Don't be too harsh in your critique with my work here in this case. But I think the effect overall is really nice. It just fits in with the dark tone of the miniature, I think. And I hope, Bruchhaus, you're okay with what I've done here. Here you see the comparison. I will just show you the pictures side by side right now, so you can see what we have done. Thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Unasked for critic.